Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we discuss week 41 of 2022. Let's get going. Well, week 42 started off much like every other week lately. It was warm, dry, unseasonably warm. It was like, I think we had a couple days in the 90s. Luckily, it didn't kill anything. But as the week went on, we got some really good news. Towards the end of the week, Saturday specifically, the last day of the week, we got some rain, and it rained a lot, or I guess in relation to what we have been getting. So we got almost 1.5 inches of rain, and then over the night we got another 1/4 of an inch. So it started, so we got about almost 2 inches of rain with total. So with that though, the front that came through behind it was also our first cold weather of the year. So kind of what I wanted to do today was go through and just take where are we now, sort of, with the plants that we have in our gardens, so that next week we can sort of juxtapose the two positions, before and after the freeze. We'll go through and I'll show you what I expect to make it and what I expect to not make it. And then we can sort of go through the next week and see how we did in our predictions, and we can make a plan on how we want to go forward on the homestead with trying to get as much food between now and the time that we simply can't grow anything. So with that being said, let's take a look. We'll start up here on the old garden. I just wanted to show kind of where our strawberries are at. You can see strawberries and even our blackberries still have some of the green leaves on them. I do anticipate all of these will die off on the front and kind of recess back into the roots for the winter time. Another thing that we have gotten done is we did plant in these two, we planted our fall onions. I don't anticipate them coming up unless we have like a warm November, December type things. They should be coming up, early February, or so. Hopefully we get bigger onions, although we're still eating onions, so we'll see what happens. And then you can see this strawberry bed. Some of it has already started dying back there in the middle to where, well, what happened is, the sun, we start getting less sun. Strawberries love sun. So as the days start getting shorter and shorter, and the evenings, they've been in the low 50s, upper 40s for quite some time now. So the strawberries and Leslie's loofahs over here, which she has already cleaned up, those didn't do well. Neither did any of the squash, the winter squash, or any of that kind of stuff. So we'll come over here. I believe our potatoes, we're going to see how that works. I don't know if they'll grow or not, but you can see this one here, they've started dying off. So this specific pot right here, it started earlier than the rest of them, so it would make sense that it would be done sooner than the rest of them. So probably sometime this week after the freeze, I'll go ahead and pull just this one so we can see what's going on underneath the dirt down there. And then that'll kind of give us an idea of what the other ones look like. So what I did was down there, I did half of this bed with some of the topsoil. I'd stopped because I had a flat on my wheelbarrow, so the inner tube came in and I'll be fixing the flat on it and we'll be able to proceed from there. So the honeysuckle over here, the coral honeysuckle that we have here, it has done really well. This is the first year we got flowers on it. I also anticipate this to lose most of its greenery whenever the frost comes. And then of course we have the potatoes down there, and then we have the potato buckets down there. So that's really it for the old garden. Most of this was a summer garden. Again, up here we had tomatoes and cucumbers, sweet potatoes, that sort of thing. And the time has come and passed for all of that. But the exciting part now is that we finally get to start, the cool weather's here. We finally get to start working towards our goals for next spring. So we can take all the stuff that we learned and prep the gardens and go on from there. So of course we'll show you folks that as we go. So are you gonna let me throw that, Boo? Are you gonna get it? Yeah. She doesn't understand the whole concept of fetch. She just wants you to try to get her stick. Now, before we step here into the top garden, I kind of wanted to preface this by saying this is the fall garden. So the stuff in here, besides the tomatoes, of course, they are sort of designed to make it through this first part of the winter. We're hoping that everything grows right up until the end of December. That's what we're hoping for. That way we can pull the carrots and stuff right there at the end of December, and they'll be able to sort of carry us through until the middle of February or so. So with that having been said, let's take a look in here. So as you can see, the greens are coming along really well there. Our tomatoes are looking fantastic, although I have a feeling these guys are going to be gone. So, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. You can see down here, our carrots are coming along nicely. Now these carrots, supposedly they should be fine. Last year we grew some in anticipation for starting our YouTube channel to make sure that they would make it. And they made it through all the freezes. We finally ended up pulling them again. I believe it was like the day before Christmas or something. And that was just because we wanted to see how many that we had and such. It was more of an entertainment thing, but they ended up looking really nice. So there are carrots coming up all the way through this bed. We are hoping that we end up with a nice carrot harvest. So look at these chickens over here with Leslie's loofah. They'll just pick the skin right off of them this time of year. She left a few on the outside down there as a sort of a form of entertainment for the chickens. But this over here is also a carrot bed. These are the ones that survived that first round of triple-digit heat after we put everything in. You know, a lot of you who follow the channel know that we lost a bunch of our carrots during that. But you can see the replacement carrots here are coming along really nicely. If we're lucky, what'll end up happening is that we'll have this first round here that we can pick and eat and such as we go through the course of the early winter time. And then when the time comes, we can harvest this back half with the big bed, and we can put all those up, blanch them, put them in the freezer, that sort of thing. We are still eating greens out of here in salads. I anticipate after this, you can kind of feel, they get a little prickly, I guess is the only way I can really describe them. Whenever it's time to start cooking them instead. So they are right on the verge of that. So before long, and it's kind of working out with the temperature too, right? We'll be able to have the hot greens instead of the cold greens. So that's fantastic. Our radishes and lettuce are looking phenomenal. This bed is awesome. You can see where we've been harvesting them. And another thing we're going to do this week is we're going to go through and pull out rows, probably 2 rows of radishes. I would guess this one and this one down here because they have the largest. And we will eat those and use them for salads, the ones that are applicable. Then what we'll do is we will replant seeds in there so that we will have another round of radishes. Because remember, they only take, you know, between 30 and 40 days for them to come to fruition. So at that point, hopefully we can get another one of these, you know, by this time in November. Having them come out for Thanksgiving or around that time would be phenomenal. So you can see here, I wanted to show this. We've been taking seeds and seeds for days off of the basil, and you can see there's still, hopefully you can see those little black dots. Those are all seeds in there too. We've got like a jar full of them, and it's just keep pointing out. But what I wanted to show were the flowers. It went back to flower again already. I came out here and the bees were all over it, and I was wondering what was going on. And well, it's flowering here in, you know, middle of October. So that's kind of cool. So, and here we go. It's kind of sad, but this guy here will probably end up, this whole area will probably end up dying off with this freeze coming in. There are a lot of big tomatoes. What I'll plan on doing this week is I got to go through and harvest everything that's going to freeze. So I'll take out all the large tomatoes. We'll let some ripen indoors. They don't taste as good that way, but they're still tomatoes. The rest of them, I think I'm going to try to make a green tomato relish out of them and can it. It'll be my first shot at it, so it may work out, it may not, but we're going to give it a shot. And our beets are looking fantastic. Again, I don't think the beets we don't have to worry about. They handled the frost and freeze really, really well last year. You can see in these gaps here, the seeds that we put in, they have come back really well. I thought we were going to lose more of them whenever we had that hot weather last week. A lot of the small ones wilted. I think I lost maybe 2, but it wasn't nothing like it was whenever we had the, you know, the triple digits that came through and just burnt up our carrots and beets. But so these guys I'm excited about. They're going to make it. Hey, Garden Terror, what are you doing, buddy? You're not going to come in here and dig up my beets, are you? course not. Alrighty, now, and this is another thing. Next year, I plan on planting our second round of Roma tomatoes, I think on August 1st instead of September 2nd, or the second week of September, I'm sorry. And the reason being is, of course, we're getting this frost, but we have, you know, baby Roma tomatoes, and there are several of them all over these plants, and you can see we have nice flowers, and they're all setting because the evenings are perfect for that sort of thing. And got some good size, you know, ones in there. Nothing that's, you know, fixing to ripen or anything, but nonetheless, they're looking good. Are you trying to do your circus trick, Beansy? All righty. Now the pallet garden is going to be a little bit different than the top garden, and the reason for that is our pallet garden, that's where we're going to plant our spring garden. So we're going to start planting back here hopefully at the 1st of February. By the latest, we'll be putting radishes in mid-February. So the reason I bring that up is because as soon as everything in this garden dies, we're going to go through, we're going to prep it with the topsoil, we're going to add some organic matter to it, fluff it, and leave it alone. That way it has a few months, you know, it'll have most of October, November, December, January, that sort of stuff, to sit there, sort of absorb a lot of water, let the microorganisms repopulate from this time of the year. That way, whenever the springtime comes, we can add a little bit of our organic fertilizer and we should be able to get going. So with that being said, let's take a look at where the pallet garden sits right now. So for the pallet garden, we have these 3 beds that are empty. Those 2 bottom ones were corn, and this one were melons. Those have been gone for a while. As soon as the sun, or I'm sorry, the days started getting shorter and the evenings got, you know, below 50 or whatever, the melons were just done. And the corn, they had done their business, and then the raccoons ate them. So that's disheartening. But nonetheless, let's move on to the beds that do have things growing in them. Now over here, this is where we have our banana peppers and our bell peppers. You know, we've said it before, but next year each one of these will have their own beds just because we got so much out of them. Earlier this week though, we went through and picked a bunch of peppers out of here, and I'll put that in the video now. Banana peppers and bell peppers. So as you can see, there were quite a few peppers that came off, especially for October. So they've slowed down, you know, since the weather has kind of cooled off a little bit, but by slowing down, that means just not as much, not getting anything, of course. But you can tell we have, you know, some smaller ones on here. And so our plan is to allow these peppers to grow until Tuesday afternoon. So once Tuesday afternoon comes, it's going to get down to like 27 degrees on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. So I anticipate these plants will be done at that point. So I'd like to get everything off of them that I can. Some of the peppers may not be as sweet as they normally would be, but you know, it is what it is at this point. I'd rather have some peppers to do something with than none. So it's going to be a while before I have any vegetables to play with and such. So I want to try to take advantage of that while I can. Leslie came out and picked the cayenne peppers once again, and there was a whole 5-gallon bucket once again. So there's a few in here. She may or may not, I'm not sure. I think we're done with cayenne peppers, but there are some in here. You can see all the flowers that are coming on here. So if we had avoided this one freeze, these things would probably go for many more moons. But I believe, you know, come Wednesday morning that this plant will probably be done, or plants I should say. The chard has a chance to make it though. The basil, or I'm sorry, the parsley has not liked it out here for the last few weeks or whatever. We do have some in Leslie's flower garden that are still thriving, but this one out here is not enjoying it as much as those other ones are. So you can see all of these green tomatoes. We've been picking cherry tomatoes as much as we possibly can. The chickens over here on this other side have been eating a bunch of them. But this plant will also more than likely be done, and you can see it's looking pretty sad at this point, and that's predominantly because the evenings have gotten to 40 into the upper 30s a couple times, and cherry tomato plants do not like anything even remotely cold. So that's what this reaction is from. But it's still like a trooper. There's still flowers from, you know, from time to time, and you still have these little green clusters, but they're not going to have time, I don't think, to ripen. The big fat green ones I'll probably take inside and see if I can't ripen those for one last, you know, tomato salad or something. But we've got a lot of it. We filled up a freezer full of cherry tomatoes. We did from our Roma tomatoes as well. So from a tomato perspective, we are really happy with the way this year went. So now, once these plants die, we are going to show you all of this on Thursday. Then we'll go through and pull them, and we will go ahead and prep our pallet garden, and we'll put that here on the channel as well. So for those of you who have raised beds, you'll kind of have an idea of how we approach refilling them and sprucing up the soil, if you will, year in and year out. Well, that about wraps up week 42 here on the homestead. We appreciate you folks for watching and sticking it out here to the end. If you have not, please consider subscribing to the channel. It does help us out tremendously, and it's free for you. If you think about it, go ahead and hit that little thumbs up button. It just kind of helps us get recommended to more people. Until next time, I hope everyone takes care of themselves. Peace.